If then we are saying that we are talking about diversity at work, and we then say we want a certain kind of cultural fit, then inadvertently what we're doing is also creating a certain type of person for that role. And like for example, I will have sit with people and they'll say these are our competencies, our overall competency framework, and this is the ones that we want everyone to fit in. And I have one organization where most people who fit in, who stay long in that organization, they score pretty high in the scale of decision making. You must remember that people who score high in the scale of decision making, it's not that they're better at making decisions, is that they take more risk and they're able to make decisions quicker. So every one of us makes decisions eventually. It's just how we make the decisions. So these particular organizations, people who were able to stay there longest are people who had an appetite for risk because it was an environment that required very, very quick decision making. But then choosing then only those people meant that there was a blind side to the culture in that the decisions were short term and quick, and the longer term view then took a hit. Yeah. So those are some of the things that you must start asking yourself in terms of when you're thinking about assessments. It's not as simple as just putting them out there. There are so many other questions that you ask yourself. So that's just the beginning of just speaking about assessments and an entry into the assessments. So what about assessments and the if I can call it the other side of why should we use them every single day? Just give me a minute as I now share my other presentation. There you go. Rose, you can see my presentation?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Okay. So the give me a minute. I was just doing this. When I first started on in this area of psychometric assessments, I walked into several hiring organizations, and what they would tell me is that, Vicky, I know what a good person looks like. I know when someone walks in through the door, I can feel and I can tell this will be a good candidate and this will not be a good candidate. But really, when we tested that over and over again, we found that it's not about the knowledge, it's that we were hiring people who were resonating with our values and were behaving like the way we wanted other people to behave. So if I was a little bit different, for example, if my accent was a little bit different from what I perceived your accent should be, of course, then I have to start asking a few other questions around, are you going to be really the candidate for this particular job? So that I know was not based on objectivity. It was actually based on subjectivity. And every day we make decisions that rest on assumptions that if I went to a particular kind of school, if I speak in a particular kind of way, if I know a particular kind of people, then I am going to be possibly a good fit for a particular role. But it is not always the case. And what happens as well is that a lot of then chances are denied to people who do not look and fit into a particular box. Yet, when you look at it, they still have a great education, they bring a lot of expertise, but then our human nature is to get biased by things that we do not really see as part of our tribe. So we often do a lot of our decision making based on gut instinct and first impressions. And that's why you can find that in a panel of interviewers, interviewing only one person, you get varied answers because we are all checking people from our own lens and from our eyes. So psychometrics add a reliable and objective set of information that can then be able to help us improve the objectivity of our decisions. So we have a way of measuring and quantifying people's inner abilities without having to put that into words. So we find that today we have a very dynamic, very, very dynamic landscape. Our skills are shifting. Leaders are asking for data-driven HR. The competition for talent is fierce, and we're trying to say we want future-ready teams. So when you think about talent, people are asking, can you quantify for me what's my succession gap? So how do you quantify succession gap if you do not have some data about the people that you have? Can you tell me how many people here are can are relationship driven, for instance? Are you able to say that out of the people in this workforce, about 20% are relationship driven? And if my core business relies on building relationships, that will affect our ability to be able to turn around the business because the 80% that are here are not relationship driven. And that comes from the way that they are naturally wired. So then maybe you're training for the wrong things. Maybe you're training for technical skill because you're thinking people need more technical uh, um, uh, support to be able to perform. But the thing is, they, in the very first place, were not ready to be able to tap into relationships and then convert those into opportunities. I had another team that I was working with, and we did a personality assessment, a behavioral assessment, and we found that this team, by the very nature of their work, was started by some very, very dominant founders who then went on to hire more dominant people to lead the business. And that has become the thing. The leadership teams, they embody more of the dominant characteristics more than any other. And so what has happened in that particular culture is that results are rewarded. People can't speak up. So people do not share their information freely. And so when you talk about psychological safety as a metrics that we now have to measure as human resource, because we know that if there is no psychological safety in organizations, then ideas are dying. People are probably working 2 times, 3 times more using AI, but they're not telling us. They're still coming and saying that work takes a week. So we are losing out as an organization and as a culture. So what is the remedy is to think about how can we be able to use this data that we have received and be able to focus on building a more people-driven workforce that is required. So when we talk about hiring, how can hiring utilize validated assessments? And this is done by ensuring that you are able to use assessments in the way that they were intended to be. So before you are able to sit down and say, okay, I want to use a psychometric assessment, there are a few things you will have had to have done. You will have had to have looked at your job descriptions. You'd have had to be consistent in the way that you're then interpreting that data, how you're laying it out. So that then allows you to bring forth a process that reduces bias, it reduces subjectivity. Yeah, because you're saying that, okay, this candidate came, we looked at the first entry, which was just their technical expertise, they have what it requires. We have a second layer, which is possibly a first interview, and that does this and this. And we have a third layer, which is psychometric assessment, that gives us information around the things that we cannot see from this candidate, because candidates will tell us everything. And so we have another fourth layer, which is possibly maybe a final interview. And from all this, you're having scores. So you're having a better aggregated score that is trying to remove the subjectivity that comes with us making decisions. And then you're then using one objective standard with candidates every single time. And when they do the psychometric assessment, because the psychometric assessment doesn't care whether they know you or not. You go in, you do the assessment, we see your behavior, we're able to understand whether you're a fit or not. You're able to use the assessments that you have to be able to predict what will happen, not only just after the job, but working with your manager Is this person going to be a fit with the team? What do they bring to the team that's not already there? What does the manager need to know about this person who's coming in, and what do they need to do with them? Where are their gaps? For example, this person will possibly is very soft spoken. They're great, they're technical, they're an expert. We need them in our organization, but they're not going to share the ideas willingly because that's just not their nature. So the manager stops saying this person never talks and stops sidelining them and realizes that this particular person, I have to work harder with him or her to ensure that they share their ideas. And the fourth thing is that it strengthens interviews. Using the insights you get from assessments, which most of the time come with interview guides, you can be able to deliver more targeted questions. So what makes an assessment valid? I talked about this earlier on, and the credibility of an assessment is so, so important. In fact, any good assessment that you get comes from a publishing house. And these publishing houses means that the assessments themselves have what we call a whole book of work behind them. They have a thesis. They have a technical manual. Sometimes it was someone's PhD, and then it was converted and taken by researchers to prove a particular theory. They have a place that they came from. They have a point of departure. Yeah. So it's not just people came and decided, I want to ask a set of questions to this particular person to find out if this is the way they are. That's not how assessments are meant to work, even if that's how we do them. We come to the workplace and we decide, let's do this 360, let's ask this couple of questions. And then if we ask, we think we'll get a certain results. But the science of psychometrics has professionals in it, and it's a serious science. The writing down of a question, which we call items, in itself is a science, because the way you ask a question, you have to check it. Just one question. Is it actually asking the right question? Have you checked it for bias? Because the way some questions are asked, some cultures cannot be able to take them in the same way. There's so many things that come. Could it be phrased in a better way? And you find that when you sit down and do the problem statement and say, we want to check on job fit. And so we write down a few questions and we say these questions are for job fit. Those questions themselves are first evaluated by a group of peers to figure out if they are actually worthwhile questions or they're rubbish questions. Once those are passed, then there are other things that go ahead to that particular questionnaire for it now to come and be published. And we are saying that it is a reliable questionnaire. So one of the things we check for in terms of assessments is how reliable is that assessment over time. And reliability here means that it gives a consistent result over time. So if you do an assessment today and there's been no significant change in your life, and you do that same assessment tomorrow, again, no significant change in your life, and the results are different, then that is a problem of reliability, not a problem of you changing overnight. So a good assessment gives you consistent results over time in the same set of circumstances. A good assessment measures what it claims to measure, and that is validity. If my assessment says that it measures how tall people are, but it's asking questions around weight, that already you can see is not measuring what it claims to measure. Now you can imagine this is harder because these are things we don't see. So if I am measuring someone's introvertedness, then we have to check to see that actually the questions that you're asking are measuring someone's introvertedness. And one of the ways we do that is that we take your questionnaire and we use it with assessments that have already been validated to measure what you're measuring. And if the result is different, then we're like, I don't think you're measuring what you're supposed to be measuring. So validity is a very important component because you have to be on point. And that's why that arrow is in the middle. You have to hit the bullseye when you say you're measuring. The other point about validity, you have to use the assessment for what it was meant to be used. And that's the other part that removes validity. And I shared it at the very beginning. If you use a personality assessment that was never meant to be used for recruitment and you use it as a recruitment tool, you have removed all validity. If we took you to a court of law, those results would be thrown out the window because that is not why that assessment was created in the first place. It doesn't matter. I know people tell me, but I can read the results. I'm able to check. That is not what that assessment was created for. You're better off going and finding an assessment that was created for recruitment or an assessment that was created for teams. And then you can claim that that is validity. And the third way of losing validity is if you do not know how to read that assessment the way that it was designed. So validity, there are many, many, many types of validity, including a simple one called face validity. If I say Vicky is talkative, do I see that in her life? Can I validate it just by seeing Vicky? That is the face validity. There is predictive validity. If I say my assessment can predict someone's performance on the job, do I have data showing that particular validity? So validity is another really, really important one that separates true assessments from pseudo assessments. Norming. Has your assessment been normed? Another very, very critical component of assessment has been normed by a particular comparison, a particular group that refers to where you're using the assessment. So if you're using the assessments in Zambia, have they taken a group either in Zambia or in Africa in general? And they can tell you that when we look at the results of this particular place, it follows the norm camp as we know it. And so comparatively, we're sure that this assessment has been normed to this group. When we first did assessment in East Africa, we had to carry out several normings to ensure that we were normed against a meaningful population. You find that now, yes, the norms even in Africa are very close to the global norms that we have, but we still have to keep norming and checking. And then, of course, prediction on the job success, job relevance. Has that particular assessment been validated for being able to predict on the job success? So assessments should be reliable and they should be used for what they were intended to be used. They should be interpreted in the way that they were meant to be interpreted as well, so that then we can say that they are valid and we're using them. So when we use assessments well, and this is well, because we can also use them another way, we find that we can actually get a very good return on investment. One of the things I find is that, and we try and speak a lot to it, is you, as especially as an organization, you hire a recruitment firm, wonderful firm, they have a great assessment, but then that assessment process is not owned by you as the organization. So the psychometric data is left there. We got the candidates we had, the candidate comes in, but you had so much data on this candidate that you could have brought in. So one of the things that starts giving you a return on investment as an organization and even a value add as a recruitment agency is getting onboarded into one assessment that works for you. And with that one assessment, over the years, you can gather so much data. I have had instances where we are invited graduate management trainee. And the question I always ask, you have done graduate management trainee recruitments once every year, once every 2 years. You have taken these people through an assessment. Where is that data? Because if you use that data and you follow through this particular person who's successful, and there are many stories like that, you're able to tell from the very beginning, depending on the scoring, you can use that data, you can use even schools they went to. There's a lot of information that you can then be able to use that will help you make better decisions when you're hiring the next time. So being able to utilize the psychometric assessment, not just as hiring, keeping that data, finding a way of being able to store and articulate that data back into business is one of the ways you get a return on investment in what we call these expensive assessments. Of course, once you start doing that, it means you're going to get a better fit in your organization. So you're going to have reduced turnover. You're going to get clearer insights into the strengths and the challenges of this person. You're going to get manager confidence because they can be able to see, okay, this is a person coming in. I have been trained in terms of how to read this assessment. And so I can make better decisions about my team members and the people who are coming directly to me. And so I am able to lead better with more confidence. And then, of course, You start looking at cultural alignment and what you want your business to stand for. So what else can we use assessments for? We can use them to identify high potential talents earlier. And then we can use these assessments as well to be able to help them grow, because obviously there's going to be a runway that they need to go through, but we can give them the most meaningful growth for themselves. So we sometimes confuse someone being a strong performer today for being a strong potential for tomorrow. But I could be very, very good at what I'm doing right now, but my potential is even for a different area that and I could have voiced it, but no one is able to see how I can fit. So psychometric assessments will give you different insights into people's learning agility, how they prefer to learn. Some people prefer to learn in class. Some people prefer to be on site in assessments. They'll give you about cognitive capabilities. What's the stretch? If you're telling someone you need to move up and be more strategic, what does that even mean? Yeah. And who are you going to move up to that place that is quote unquote more strategic? What does it mean when you want to define your leadership potential, and what skills are you moving? So you can use psychometric assessments to check and distinguish between high performers and high potentials. So high potentials, most of the time, what are you checking for? You know that this person has deep technical expertise, but you know for him or her to lead in the future, there are other things that they need to grow, and they also need to have the capacity to grow so that they're able to adapt to the different situation. And this is one of the ways that you can use psychometrics for. Psychometrics help us build stronger talent pipelines. And they do this because a person like me, who has already a deep expertise in one thing, my skills are transferable across different other disciplines. I mean, I can go into marketing, I can go into strategy. There are several areas that I can grow. So a psychometric assessment will map out for you where this person is most likely to give their best contribution. So if I'm looking around, I'm saying, okay, maybe I should move into HR, maybe I should move into marketing, but I've done an assessment, so my runway is a bit more clear because of certain things that you've been able to identify. So once you see a leader, maybe by the way that they behave, the way that they're able to influence people, give them an assessment, one that you've already chosen, and you're able to then be able to understand how you can then build them up, yeah, and to grow into other roles that they are required. So what am I saying? Beyond just giving ways to training and development needs, you're actually developing what we call evidence-based development plans, and this can then go into coaching as well as mentorship. The power of self-awareness, and this is perhaps the most underrated benefit of psychometrics, because when you do psychometric assessments, the one thing that you should always then follow up with is a conversation with the individual around what that assessment means for them. Because self-awareness, if you go to any leadership class, what's the first thing you start with? It starts with you. It always starts with self-awareness. And then it tells you, we're doing this because you first have to lead yourself before you lead others. And being able to use psychometric assessments with individuals helps you give them a mirror that they can look up to that is written in a language or in a way that provides objectivity. So, it's different from me saying, you're like this and you're like that and you're the other. But here you have a validated tool that is giving you this information, and we're telling you from this tool, these are your strengths, these are possibly your blind spots, this is what you need to build. And some self-awareness and the ability of you as a coach, a mentor, or you, the human resource manager, teaching or being able to give the skills for coaching to managers as well. They're able to spark this in the people that they're leading. And once you spark that thing called self-awareness in others, it is one of the most powerful things you can give anyone. The ability to look at themselves as they are and to really understand what they need to be able to grow. And psychometric assessments, they give you a way of doing this without necessarily making a person feel like they're on the spot and you're the one telling them you are like this. And then the other thing about psychometric assessments, I think I mentioned this, is that then if we are to use them, then we have to use them responsibly. One activity that sometimes is not very popular, but which is really, really important is when someone does a psychometric assessment with you, where do you put that data? And usually, all psychometric assessments, they come with an individual report that someone can use. But most people don't forward these individual reports to the candidate for one reason or the other. But it's a gift you can give to this candidate. And you can even, for me, if it was up to me, give them a small debrief and tell them this is how you should read this is what it actually means, and you have already grown self-awareness. The second thing is to be able to use assessments, you must then be able to talk about fairness and how you can be able to ensure that there's transparency in how and why assessments are used. So one of the things that we do all the time before we deliver any psychometric assessment is to ensure that you have told the candidate why they're being assessed, what the results are going to be used for, and who's actually going to see those results. And this counts not only for recruitment, but even in 360s. Why am I doing a 360? And I think that's why 360s got such a bad name, because that information, no one would see it and it would be used then for performance evaluation. But really, a 360 is a development tool, and that should be the way that they are used. We're using this to help you, to help grow you. The person who's going to see this assessment is your manager and possibly the manager above that, of course, a human resource person. We're going to use this data to develop your development plan. That's being transparent. And then confidentiality. Not sharing those reports with people that you did not mention you're going to share the reports with. And then, of course, ensuring that every single assessment, like I said from the beginning, has been interpreted in the way that it is meant to be interpreted and not used for example, a 360 that is meant to be for development should never be used as a performance evaluation tool. That in itself is a serious conflict of interest. How can you develop me when you're already damning me with a report? Even if it comes out that the way that people are experiencing me is very difficult, it is meant to be a mirror for me to look at and then to grow from there, not to be used as a tool to decide whether you're keeping me in the organization or not. And if that was the intention, then it should be communicated very early. Some of the common misuses of assessment, using the psychometric assessment as the sole score for a candidate. And sometimes we do this at the very beginning, for example, like graduate management trainees, where there are so many people. So you put them into an ATS, and of course, there are certain things that will make sure that only the people who have the right credentials come in and possibly do one assessment through. And that's different. But sometimes we take assessments and we use that scoring as the be it and that's the end. But psychometric assessments are meant to be an additional layer that gives you more information about a particular candidate. And in fact, we usually say that when you're bringing together your matrix for hiring, especially, it shouldn't constitute more than 30% of the score that makes up the hiring decision. Using non-validated tools, and there are very many people who I know would send people, go to the internet, look up this part, please send me your scores after you've done with this psychometric. And that practice is really prevalent, but really, really not ethical at all. And if you're going to tell people to go and take a candidate to take assessments on their own money, I mean, I really find that really, really unethical. It's just as well you interview the candidates and you get the information from that interview and move on. If the organization cannot take up then the assessments themselves, validated assessments themselves. So using unvalidated tools is common, and I understand it. For example, the using of MBTI to hire because it's cheaper than a hiring tool. That is really not ethical, but it's done world over. Why? The tool is cheap, it's readily available, and someone says, I know how to interpret it. But at the end of it all, if you were, for example, because in the developed world, people get sued left, right, and center for all these things. If you're to come up to court and say, this is a tool that I used for hiring, they'll ask you, has it been normed against the population? Show me the data. Where's the validation data? What is it really meant for? And you find that now you're getting yourself into a bigger mess. For example, in South Africa, because of the different ethnicities and races, it's a very, very important process to have the tool validated by the Psychologist Institute, because they know what the different intricacies that go in there. And so using one that is not validated could put you in a lot of trouble. Not being able to get yourself trained to interpret an assessment, relying on your knowledge again. And because of the way psychometric assessments are written, we all assume we know what they mean, but every single assessment, like I said, was created differently. Then using it to label people, those are the people who are so loud. These ones are very quiet. These ones can't make decisions. These ones don't like conflict. Assessments were not meant to pigeonhole anyone. They were meant to give us data to help us work better together and become better together. And then ignoring context, overlooking the role, the team, and the situation when it comes to that assessment. And here we found things where people want a specific person to go into a role. And so even that assessment result sometimes becomes a bit of a problem. Yeah. So no single data point tells the whole story. So we must be able to understand, how do we use assessments in the context of all the other things? How do we then develop a scoring matrix that gives us a more balanced decision? And this is now where we start saying that we are reducing bias and trying to use as much information as we can when it comes to creating data. So assessments now are evolving fast. If I could give a brief history of assessments from a long, long time ago, when MBTI, I think, is one of the oldest ones, and even DISC, the 4-quadrant ones, but they're all based on the work of this psychologist, Carl Jung. And even the cognitive assessments that we have in the early 70s and were flagged for a lot of inconsistencies. And they were also flagged for biases. Biases to the extent that if a man and a woman did the same assessment, the man would score higher than the woman. That is how biased the assessments were. But a lot of work has been put into the psychometric industry. A lot of statisticians, mathematicians have looked at the data, explored various ways of reducing this bias, and now we get a lot of great assessments that have been tested in the market, and bias is not even the biggest thing we have a problem with. But now we have evolved. We have assessments that help us predict the future, forecasting whether we are going to meet our work demands. We have emotional intelligence assessments that give you deeper insight into where someone is in that journey. And this has become really important because everywhere you go, that's what we keep mentioning. EI is the skill of the future. In the world where we have a lot of uncertainties and things are changing, the ability of a person to remain self-aware, aware of others, to manage relationships, to manage themselves is going to be really, really critical. Analyzing data and tying it to outcomes. Just yesterday, I was in a webinar where we're talking about HR analytics, and we're talking about things like what I've just shared, the relationship quotient of our people, decision making, and how that is important to the business. Talking about succession planning and the gaps by providing information through assessments. We're talking about, there's so many other things that we're talking about. And most of these things now are relying on assessment data. And some of the things, because I think I took a short video, if I can share, because it was very interesting for me, obviously, being someone who does a lot of work around assessments, is think about, what do you have in terms of your human capital? What knowledge do they have? What skills do they have? skills like leaning into conflict, that's a skill. So how many of your people are conflict averse and how many are conflict ready? How many of your people, when it comes to self-management, score high so that they're able to manage occupational stress? Because if they don't score high, then they become a human resource, what we call a human resource, human capital liability. And so you have to manage for that, because when people can't self-manage, then there you're looking at absenteeism and things like that. So I was just looking at this presentation and thinking about the future of work, things that they were talking about, collaboration index, yeah, longevity index. These are all things that you can start to help quantify using the psychometric assessments. Then talking about skill-based hiring, prioritizing what we are capable of over our credentials, because that's the world that we're moving to. And then we're moving to adaptive tools. We already have adaptive testing that in our psychometric assessment. So that has been a discussion around psychometrics, and basically what they are, what they strive to do, how you can use them responsibly, how to check quickly on the reliability and validity and norming and so on. But in a nutshell, what I would say is that psychometrics are here to stay now more than ever. And so really getting a deep dive and understanding of how you not only utilize them because they're nice to have, but then how you also start embedding them into your processes is what will make the difference between a person who is able to provide the required talent management and talent recruitment selection for an organization, and a person who, again, we start relying on gut. And in this world where we have so many people ready in terms of the just the talent market. We have so many people that we find that, and then everyone can be a copy of anyone all the time. We need to be better prepared. So my closing challenge to you is: are you measuring your people with the same rigor as everything else? If people are truly your greatest asset, are you measuring them with the same discipline and confidence that you apply to finance, operations, and strategy? So with that, I will stop my presentation and then I will take questions. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Vicky. And I think from the conversations that I've been able to see from the chat section, I think the reaction is that it's been a very insightful sessions. So there are a couple of questions coming out of the chat. But what I wanted to say as we go into the section where you'll be responding to these questions is that colleagues, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat section. And if you're unable to, for whatever reason, please feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll be able to pick up from there. So let me just pick up on the first question, Vicky. This question is coming from Kefas Kaluba. And his question is around, just one moment, please. So he says, he's got two questions actually. I am looking for the first one. Just one moment, please. All right. So Kefas Kaluba, I think you add on if I'll leave out anything. The first question that he had was, what is the best methodology for validation of the tests? And then secondly, his second question was, for norms, we have adopted the Stanine scores for both national and own norms. Is it the best compared to the STEM score and others? So those are the two questions coming in from Kefas. I hope you can be able to respond to those, Vicky.
Okay, so the first question is, what is the best way to?
Kefas, would you want to expand on your question, the first one?
Yes.
Mr. Kaluba, are you there? Okay, maybe we've lost him for a moment there, but let me just go back to that question one more time.
So, okay. I found the question. I was looking for the question.
Perfect.
Yes, yes. So I think there are, I don't know if he was referring to validation internally in terms of, for example, if I am an organization, how do I validate my assessment? But when it comes to psychometric assessments, they go through a battery of validations. It's not just one. So if you're looking for a good assessment, it will not have just one validation. And that's why I mentioned there's a validation around how consistent it is, that is reliability. And there's a validation around validity. And those two have to be there. And then there's the norming that has to happen. Those three have to be there. And so the best way to validate for yourself whether an assessment is going to be a good assessment to use for your organization is to ask for the literature. Ask the person to give you the published manuals or articles or research that went behind that particular assessment. And that will give you everything you need to know about that particular assessment. Ask a psychometric consultant, such as myself or any other person, to give you information and tell you, okay, this one looks like, it's a really valid tool. That's the best way to validate an assessment for your organization. But for psychometrics, it has to go through what the psychometricians have set as a standard for validation in terms of psychometric. The other way that as an organization you can validate your own tools is what are you using it for? So if you have an assessment that has been validated for recruitment, which you can also use for development after coaching, onboarding, then you're telling yourself that my return on investment in this particular assessment is better than just getting in a screening tool. And then it doesn't have other reports that you can use internally to grow whoever it is that you select. So you can also think about what are the things that I want to see, I want to check for as an organization. Some people just at the very beginning, they want to check the mental capacity that I said, but you're thinking, okay, these people that are coming in, we want to grow them maybe into in today's world, we talk about devolved leadership and devolved decision making. So you want to check those capabilities in people. So you're now not just looking at a cognitive assessment, you're also looking at a personality or certain elements of personality or behavior that you want to check. So you add those. So when you're sitting down, it's more like you're going through your own competency framework. Actually, that's what you are doing. And then deciding, because this is what we have, what is then the best tool to use for us as an organization to get the information that we require. So I've looked at it from those two angles, from the assessment world and then from the organization. And then when it comes to norms, I think the Star9 scores, I haven't come across it a lot, but it is used a lot for education, I believe. But in our world of psychometrics, and we use the STEM score most of the time. I think it is found to be easier. I'm not very sure, but I think Star9 and STEM scores, both of them are designed for the same thing. It's the same thing, norming. But you will find that STEM scores will be used a lot more in the psychological field, maybe because they're a bit longer by one or something like that. But that's what you'll find. In fact, I've never encountered the Star9 score in my work in psychometrics, but I have heard of the Star9 score in possibly in education and other disciplines. So those are my two questions to Kefas.
All right, thank you, Vicky. I can see the chat is still empty. Perhaps maybe those that might still want to have engagement, do you mind raising your hand so that we take note of your question, comment, or concern? So, dear participants, kindly asking for your reactions. If there are any
I think I
reactions
can see
whatsoever,
that there are two hands up. There's
the two
Kabwe.
hands up.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead. All right. Sorry, Kawe, I didn't see that. We begin with Kawe Movemba and then Chileshishilemu. Please go ahead, Kawe. Thank you.
Hello again. So I'm representing ZICAS and I'm the Counseling and Placement Officer. So part of my role is helping students become career and interview ready. So my question is, what psychometric assessments would you recommend for a learning institution? And how can my office, for example, use the results to improve career guidance, employability, and placement outcomes?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
What age?
So these are university students. So let's say 18 to 25, around there.
18 to 20. Okay. 18 to 25. Okay. So for me, okay, maybe 25 is a bit older. But for me, whenever we do assessments of the younger, possibly maybe from about 16 to 20, I think the assessments I would recommend is one based on occupational motivations. And these are the 6 occupational motivations: enterprising, investigating, creative. What was the other one? Technical. Why? Because they in not so much language, they help a person understand what they lean more towards. And in fact, it then gets validated by the things they do in their life. And I find that for us, that's one of the best career assessments that we give them. So you'll find someone will score high on enterprising and maybe creative. It doesn't mean that they're an entrepreneur. It means that the roles that they pick have to be roles where they have the chance of presenting their ideas, negotiating with others, influencing others, because they will tend to enjoy that. And so that then allows us to look at careers that can give them that opportunity because it fulfills something innately in them. Others find, for example, they will still be in, let's put the general career there of IT, but you find they have a social motivation or need, meaning that if you ever leave them in the back end, then they will never be fully fulfilled. So it's being able to show them that in their life, they're most likely going to move or gravitate towards a place where the welfare of people is important. That's what I would recommend. And I think AMADI has career success predictor based on those 6. And then I always say that the aptitude part of that is already given by the work that they're doing in school. But at least with that, you have helped them understand where they can lean on to. I hope I have answered Kabwe. And the 6 occupational is Holland's code. So if you look at Holland's code, it will give you the 6 occupational or motivational interests for everyone. But then different publishers have taken that work and developed their own assessment. Yes. Chilesha?
All right. Thank you, Kawe. I hope that responds to your question. Chileshishilemu, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for your presentation. It was very, very insightful. And I think we have been, interacting with psychometrics for a long time here at Sanlam. But this is, I think, a very interesting take, very insightful. And I think more than anything, it actually does resonate with the values that we uphold. My question is around, and I hope I didn't miss this in your presentation. My question is around your take when it comes to whether the psychometric report should be shared with the candidate. So in past experience, we've had psychometric administered to an employee, and we've been strictly advised this should not be shared with the person. So you take it, use it to determine whether they made it or where you place them and so on. You explained very nicely the uses, the main uses, and also the other uses of the psychometrics. But then in some cases, you find that there are candidates that are really eager to see the report and to learn a bit more about themselves and how they were assessed. I know the reasoning that has been given around not sharing, but I wanted to get your take in terms of how this can be used to its fullest potential. How does it help a candidate? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So my opinion has always been share the candidate report. And any good assessment always has or has developed an individual report that does not give the details of, say, for example, a hiring assessment. Because a hiring assessment to the hiring manager or to the hiring professional, it gives you more information that aligns with why you should hire. I mean, what's the job fit relation with this person? There's a lot more information around that hiring decision. But an individual report is crafted so that it is used by that individual and the language is for an individual. So say, for example, a hiring report will tell me something like Vicky Karuga does not fit this role because maybe she has scored outside of this and this and this, and this is what it means. So an individual report will never say that. It will tell me, Vicky Karuga, you're highly assertive. That means that you should 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. And it really does help me. So my opinion has always been, ask the provider of the assessment to make available to you the individual report. And for candidates who ask, give them that report. And if sometimes for us at Profiles, what we do is we offer a Zoom session and a group of people join in, and then they can then be able to go through their own individual report that has no information to do with the company or the organization, because I know that is sensitive data. So that has always been my stand. Just give the report. It's part of CSR sometimes, I think, although maybe not so much if you don't have someone who can interpret the report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Shirashi. So in the chat section, I think Eugenia Cantu Malenji has a similar question around data protection. And basically they're asking, are the results kept forever, and can they be shared with third parties?
If you go to a good publisher of an assessment, they will give you the information on how long they keep the assessments in their servers. Usually it's about 5 years. And because most of them, especially if they're coming from the EU or the US, are held by very strict data protection laws, if you just send information and say you want the data removed from the servers, they will delete as soon as that request is made. And they'll always make that very, very clear. For us, we are registered under the data protection as a data handler. And so we are also held by certain laws. For example, as assessment providers, we cannot share data. I cannot share someone's data with someone else. Even if you came and did the assessment today and you are going to another organization, I cannot share that data. We are bound by that. So you are bound by the rules that govern how data is protected within your jurisdiction. Yeah. So do some people go ahead and share information that is really, I mean, against the law, and it is not ethical? Even organizations should not share assessment information. I mean, that's your own personal data information. And so even when you're running a hiring, you're hiring and you're doing assessments, that's one of the things you do tell the candidates, that this is private, this is confidential, we are bound by the Data Protection Act, your information will not be shared for any other reason other than what it was intended to be used. And that must always be very, very clear. So those are the laws that bind us as assessment providers, and which each assessment provider, whether it's us, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's even an organization, they do adhere to. And so you can, if you ever find that breached and you're not aware of it, you do have a way of taking action. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands, and I don't seem to pick up. Do we still have some more reactions, some more questions maybe? Please feel free to raise your hand. Oh, there you go. Matthews Mwawa, please go right ahead. Hello, Matthews, are you there?
Yes,
go right ahead.
are you getting me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Though I joined that the time that the discussion had already started. My name, like I've said, is Matthews Mwara, the regional chairman for Hospitality and Catering Association of Zambia, Luapula region. I just want to find out if the presentation will be also given to us. It will be sent through the WhatsApp or through our organizers of this meeting. Thank you so much. It's a very good presentation. It has opened us an insight. A lot of things I've learned from. Though I came in to join at when almost like you are on the middle of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Right.
I think I can answer that. Thank you so much. This is Mankulele from AMADI Development. I wish to say that this is going to be a series of webinars that we're going to have leading up to the People Intelligence Masterclass on understanding psychometrics assessments. And we are open to even opening a WhatsApp group so that we can share more information about the next webinars and trainings that we're going to have. If you look into your chat room, you'll see our contact details there. I've shared our email address, which is info@amadi.devgroup.com, and the phone numbers right there. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Manku. Are there any more questions or reactions? Okay, I'm just checking my chat. Right, okay. So if there aren't any, should I presume that there aren't any more questions? I want to close the round of questions, so please this is the final round. Just asking if there are any comments, any reactions before we move on to the final segment.
Sorry, I'm not able to see where my hand is, so I couldn't put it up.
All right. Go ahead, Moni. Go ahead.
Just clarity, is Mankulele saying that we send our numbers for us to be added to the WhatsApp group?
Manku, would you care to clarify that, please?
Yes, please. You may even use the chat to indicate your phone number and email address, and you can also send your details to our info@amadidevgroup.com.
Thank you very much. That's clear.
You're welcome.
Right, we'll try and see if we can beam up those details, the email on the share section in a moment. Should I assume that there aren't any more questions? I want to wind up, so please advise. I'm just taking the final round of questions, comments, contributions.
Good morning. Equally could not find the icon to raise the hand. Clayton.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Clayton.
Okay,
go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to find out what does it take to acquire, the services of this psychometric, platform, for an organization. Is it not really like some process? No, and what is involved?
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I'm quite certain, Mr. Clayton, that quite a number of us colleagues here might be wondering. Manko, would you want to just respond to this Mr. Clayton's question? And also, Mr. Clayton, maybe you could just confirm which organization are you representing?
I'm coming from Build It International.
From Build It. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Manko, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. You're welcome, Mr. Clayton. I think I've been engaging with your organization, and I did send an email with our introductory, just to introduce our institution and the services that we can provide to you. And also, I want to say that AMADI Development Group is registered with PACRA, and we are found at Lagos Road, plot number 18 in Rhodes Park, Lusaka. So we are built with the institutional foundation of the broader AMADI Group, which has credible presence across Southern Africa. And we're also members of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management, and we have a practicing certificate. So what AMADI Group brings is a combination of attributes that are distinctively in the Zambian market. We have 20 years institutional trust across Southern Africa's public and private sectors. So we work structured around 4 mutually reinforcing service pillars. We do psychometric assessments by providing scientifically validated, locally relevant psychometric tools for talent selection, leadership, development, succession planning, and workforce profiling. We have Profiles International Limited as one of our partners, and Profiles has internationally recognized instruments like Vicky has shared, including MPCA practitioner training, everything DISC, genomes in emotional intelligence. The second pillar, apart from psychometrics assessments, is digital learning academy. We are able to structure digital learning programs through cross-knowledge platform. This is a world-leading enterprise, trusted over about 12 million learners across 130 countries, endorsed by Wiley Education Services. So our Digital Skills and Employability Academy offers programs in graduate employability, supervisory development, leadership, and digital workplace skills. We'll be able to deliver via the mobile-first offline capable platform that's suited to Zambia's connectivity environment, so that people are able to do these tests or even learn online. The third pillar is institutional and development programs. We can design and deliver tailored capacity building programs for NGOs such as yourselves and government entities and development finance institutions, including psychometric training and professional certification. The last one is HR analytics and workforce intelligence. So we support boards and senior leadership with skills audits, talent mapping, workforce profiling, and ESG people data. So we'll be able to reach out to you, Mr. Clayton. And I think I sent an email. If you just go through your emails introducing AMADI services, and we are ready to work with you so that we can tailor it to your organization's needs. They're in Chibombo.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Manko. Yeah, it's been great, actually, even just the information that you shared earlier on, and yeah, I've been trying to get around how best we could get all the relevant team members to appreciate the program. But once we have the entire team aligned, we should be able to invite you so that you are able to share much more, and so that we can just align to the services that you're offering. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clayton. I believe now there aren't any further comments. And I really urge us colleagues, those that would want to engage further, please just post your details in the chat section, such that we could be able to follow up and perhaps build up on this discussion. I would want Manku perhaps to just expand a little bit more, maybe to maybe just say one or two things about the team, or perhaps maybe introduce Beatrice. Also, Beatrice is AMADI CEO for the Zambia outfit, and she was unable to be with us today, but maybe we can take advantage of this time, Manku, to perhaps just offer some remarks, and then I'll have Vicky just come on to give us some closing remarks. So Manku, please go ahead and just perhaps offer Beatrice remarks on her behalf. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Chazia. I would like to offer a vote of thanks on behalf of Beatrice Mwangi. And it says, distinguished guests, esteemed participants and colleagues, as we draw this session to a close, I want to take a moment to express our heartfelt and sincere gratitude to every individual who made today's webinar possible and meaningful. To our lead presenter, first and foremost, our deepest appreciation goes to Vicky Karuga, Managing Director of Profiles International East Africa. Vicky, your depth of knowledge, clarity of delivery, and genuine passion for the science of people decisions made this session not only informative, but also transformational. In over 15 years of working alongside you in the organizational development space, your expertise has never ceased to inspire, and today is no exception. Thank you for generously sharing your time, your insight, rigorous science behind the Select tool with our audience. To our partner organization, we extend warm and sincere thanks to Profiles International East Africa for their invaluable partnership. Your commitment to bringing globally benchmarked evidence-based assessment science to the African market is precisely the kind of collaboration AMADI was built to champion. We are proud to stand alongside you in this work. To our participants, to every HR professional, people manager, and organization development practitioner who has joined us today, thank you. Your presence, your engagement, your questions gave this session its energy and purpose. Your willingness to invest an hour of your professional day in deepening your understanding of psychometric assessment speaks to your commitment to building better, more human-centered organization. That commitment is what drives us at AMADI. To the organizing team, a special word of thanks to AMADI and Profiles team for the behind-the-scenes coordination, organization, and dedication that made this webinar run seamlessly. Your work is the foundation on which every client interaction and public engagement is built. In closing, I'd like to say, I leave you with a thought that sits at the heart of everything AMADI does. We live and work in an era where data shapes decisions in nearly every domain: finance, operations, marketing, and supply chain. And yet, when it comes to the most consequential decisions of all, decisions about people, we still far too often rely on instinct alone. Today's session was a deliberate invitation to change that. The science behind psychometric assessments is not new. What is new and what today demonstrated is the accessibility of these tools, the quality of the instruments now available to African organizations, and the readiness of professionals like you to engage with them seriously and strategically. We encourage you to carry today's learnings back to your organizations. Reflect where subjectivity may still be costing you in your hiring, your development planning, or your succession conversations. Ask yourself, where could a more evidence-based approach help us build not just a more efficient team, but a more human one? The goal is not to label people, it is to understand them deeply enough to place them, development, and lead them in ways that unlock their best. AMADI Development Group and Profiles International East Africa remain committed to walking this journey with you. Whether you're exploring psychometric assessments for the first time or looking to deepen and formalize your existing practice, we're here to support you in every step of the way. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us in the email and phone numbers that Manko, of course, myself, have put in the chat room. Our team is ready to have conversation tailored to your organization's specific context and needs. Thank you once again for your time, your engagement, and your belief that great organizations are built on a foundation of understanding people well. We look forward to continuing this conversation to supporting your people strategy. So this was, I read this on behalf of AMADI Development Group. Like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a series of webinars, and we're looking forward to setting up that WhatsApp group so that we can communicate to you, and you're free to reach out to us. I think I can even share video because when you do want to meet, yes, this is the person that you'll be meeting. And thank you, Chazia, as well for moderating.
Right. Okay, Manku. Vicky, perhaps in closing, just a closing remark. As we indicated, colleagues, this is going to be a series of webinars leading into the People Intelligence Masterclass, I think slated for around the second week of July. So be on the lookout for that. As Manku had indicated, I think we're available and ready to make tailor-made solutions to your particular organization. So please remember to send in your details so that we can have a post-engagement, post-close. Vicky, over to you, just some closing remarks, and then we can close the meeting. Thank you. Hi, Vicky, are you still there? So perhaps she's dropped off. So it's been a pleasure, dearest colleagues. We do look forward to engaging with you. Let me see if I could just turn on my video as well. I hope to meet and greet and probably engage with you a little more very soon. All right. Shalom, shalom. Do take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Uh,